So my theory in life and my theory with my kids is always that, yes, we make mistakes. We try to learn from the past. We take it as a lesson and hopefully improve it for the future. So that was my kind of way of trying to get my team to work when I took over. So I started to every 3 months look at all of my datexes and try to categorise them. So, I mean, this is very small and I do apologise, but if you look at some of these, we had missed insulins, had variable rates that weren't particularly well managed, we had pre-surgery information that was being given very strangely, and probably nothing that everybody else hasn't seen in their own trusts. Then I started to think, okay, so this is too big to deal with all in one go. So what things are going to cause significant harm? I'll start and try and look at those first. And then I started to look at the things that really just shouldn't happen, like really poor planning. That isn't in my trust, by the way, but I just did think it was quite a funny picture. Things like out of stock. Now in our trust we've got emergency cupboards and on-call pharmacists. So I was saying, why are we having missed insulins because they're out of stock? Why are you not going to emergency cupboards, and why are you not contacting your on-call pharmacists and things like that? Looking at the really rubbish prescriptions, looking at the things where where you think, oh, you just got your Humalog and your Humalog mixes mixed up and things like that. So I started to try and kind of have a look at those. And then we were having, and I was noticing quite a few sharps injuries, and I was thinking these things just shouldn't happen. Then I get a call from the trust safety advisor and goes, Erica, we're noticing that you're getting quite a few datexes through about this reason or that reason. Are you aware of your never events list? And I was like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. Basically, the never events lists are things that should not happen if you've got policies and procedures in place that have been followed. So in 2015-16, around insulin specifically, it said that we shouldn't be abbreviating the words, units to IU or U. That you should have a very clear prescription, and that you should be using a specific insulin device. So I said, okay, so we'll have a look at this and we'll go back to my datexes and I'll see whether some of these relate. Then the year after they changed it slightly, but I don't think when they changed them they particularly rewrite them. I think it kind of underwrites what was already there. So basically then they changed it to a 10-fold or greater overdose, and also when they don't use a specific device. So you can see very easily, can't you, if you write 10 IUs, it could translate, depending on how good the writing is, to 10 U's or 100 whatevers. So we started to target some of our teaching around this and started to try and highlight some of these areas. Okay? And then this year's has changed again, and basically the only added part as such is that we were finding people do draw out of pre-filled insulin pens. Not so much in the trust as an issue, however I have had one or two, but that was also added to our targeted teaching. I was thinking I'm getting really overwhelmed with this. I've got so many things that I need to kind of juggle and try and sort out, as well as trying to do my day-to-day job, so I'm not quite sure how to streamline this. So I decided to go for my easy fixes first. I thought quick wins are good, aren't they? They make you feel good, they make you think I've got somewhere with this. So then I started to line up my ducks. I started to collect all my data, and I started to streamline my data and break it down, so I knew whether it was doctor-related incidents or whether it was nurse-related incidents, and whether they were specific areas. So as you would expect, a lot of the datexes are where people hit the hospitals, so your A&E, surgical admission units, medical admission units, places like that. However, it was broad and widespread. So we took that information and I tried to make it as clear and as targeted as I could. Most of you will know that a lot of the people who run our hospitals and who make a lot of the decisions are very red personalities. They want to know what the problem is, what you're going to do about it, and how you're going to fix it. That's what they want to know. So I had to make sure that the information that I had met what they wanted me to deliver, and there wasn't too much woolly stuff that then lost the points I was trying to bring. We're really blessed in Shropshire because we have regular MDTs. So what we would normally do is, if we've got a problem that we're seeing repeatedly, is we'll take it to our local MDT and say, this is the problem that's coming up repeatedly. What do we think as a team we need to do to sort this out? Then often it goes to a local clinical governance and we go, we know this is the problem within our trust and we know that we need to do something about it. And then depending on how we get on with that and how well we can implement anything or teaching, etc., it then goes up to an executive board level for any decisions to be made. So things like mandatory training and things like that actually has to go through the whole procedure before you get to executive, before they'll make a decision as to whether you get mandatory training or not. Alongside of that, obviously, if I'm taking things forward, I have to make sure that I've provided training and that I've got risk assessments in place. So if we don't do this, this is what potentially is going to happen. And I find that often, once you implement the training, a lot of the incidents actually resolve themselves. Don't be afraid to take it to the top. I find that I would get to a certain point and then I'd be thinking, I don't really know what to do with this, I don't really know how to take it. But I think that the whole point of having a structure is that you work your way through the structure, and by the time you get to the top, hopefully you find somebody who will actually do something to help you with it. Remember, Rome was not built in a day. It is so easy to be really overwhelmed with everything that's going on and not know which bit to do first. And I do think it's really important to think really big though, but start small. I think once you've got those quick wins under your belt, you get a little bit more confident, don't you, to tackle some of the more complex things. Some of our issues that we had specifically in Shropshire was the needle sticks. Now, when the EU guidance came in for safe use of sharps, it actually did me a massive favour, because I went, this guidance has come out, and the trust went, yes it has, and I went, what are we going to do about it? And they said, well, what have we got? And I said, this is what we've got. And they went, yeah, great idea. And that actually has reduced my sharps injuries from what they were, and I think I've had 2 this year, and that's because people didn't follow the guidance in-house. We also had a few problems with foot alterations. Now, Shrewsbury and Telford are set on 2 different sites, so they're 17 miles apart. And depending on where you live in the county, because it's quite a big county, it goes all the way to Mid Wales and almost to the Birmingham border, would depend on where you got admitted to. All the vascular consultants are at Shrewsbury. So if you get admitted to Telford, you could be on an outlying ward with non-specialists looking after you. And we were dependent on nurses going, this patient has diabetes and has foot ulceration and this is the problem. Could you come and see them? However, some of my nurses are not particularly very confident with foot assessment either. And by the time you've got somebody to come and see them or look at them, or even get a consultant to come out on the outreach ward rounds, it could be a day or 2 days later. And as we know, with diabetic foot, you can't actually afford to be waiting that long. So we actually had quite a few RCAs that we investigated that then went through all the governance issues, and they wrote some guidance around diabetic foot patients, which actually encourages the doctors on admission to get vascular consultants, the diabetes team, etc. involved, and the patient transferred to the right area straight away. The other thing that we've done is a little bit behind the curve is get the foot assessment added to the nursing documentation on admission. So it's part of the admission that they actually have to do a visual foot check and use something along the line of the Ipswich touch test for any neurological issues also. It has all the referral criteria and what needs to be done. And then we did local training for insulin, so we do our own trust study days. We had all our diabetes awareness days. I have a band 5 that does targeted teaching, so that when staff can't get off the ward, my band 5 will go out to the ward staff and teach them about insulins, and including doctors. We had training for consultants, registrars. I do a regional SHO training, and I also do twice a year doctor training for FY1s. And I try to escalate the issues as much as I can so that everybody in the trust is aware of what's going on, because it's not just one person's responsibility to sort it out. So don't be afraid to keep pushing. I'm very pushy in my trust. They love me, I'm sure. But we keep trying, and that's all that we can do to try and improve things. Thank you for listening.